During World War II, water could kill as easily as a bullet. In jungles, deserts, and bomb-scarred fields, soldiers faced an invisible enemy. Disease, dysentery, cholera, and typhoid claimed thousands of lives, often faster than enemy fire. Safe water was as vital as ammunition, yet it was almost impossible to find. Rivers were contaminated with oil, mud, or corpses. Wells were poisoned or destroyed. In the chaos of war, every sip could mean survival or death. But out there, under fire and hunger, soldiers adapted. They didn't have portable purifiers, UV pens, or high-tech filters. What they had was ingenuity, and, well, a deep instinct to survive. Using chemistry, fire, and sheer resourcefulness, they turned the filthiest puddles into something close to drinkable. Their makeshift science became the foundation of modern survival techniques. This is the story of how they did it. It often began with what they had at hand: dirt, charcoal, and sand. Soldiers discovered that by layering crushed charcoal, sand, and gravel inside a canteen or a tin can, they could create a crude but effective filter. They burned wood until it turned black and brittle, crushed it down, and poured murky water through the mixture. The results seemed almost miraculous. Water that had been brown and foul came out clearer, cleaner, and far less deadly. They didn't know all the chemistry then, but we do now. Charcoal, even in its simplest form, absorbs impurities and chemicals. It binds to organic toxins, odors, and even some heavy metals. It doesn't kill germs outright, but it strips away the filth, preparing the water for boiling or disinfection. In essence, it was the first stage of a survival lab, a rough ancestor of the activated carbon filters we use today in everything from home purifiers to astronaut gear. But filtering alone wasn't enough. The real breakthrough came from chemistry, specifically Halazone tablets. These tiny white pills, no bigger than aspirin, were one of the United States Army's most overlooked inventions of the war. Developed in the late 1930s, they packed chlorine chemistry into portable form. One tablet could disinfect about a quart of water, killing most bacteria and viruses that cause disease. Soldiers would drop one into their canteen, wait half an hour, and drink. The taste was awful, metallic like swimming pool water, but it was better than dysentery. Halazone was revolutionary because it, well, gave soldiers mobility. They could purify water anywhere, in a jungle stream, a desert puddle, or even a bomb crater. No need for fire, no fuel, and no waiting around for rain. It was like chemistry on the move. The downside, though, was that Halazone didn't last long. Humidity could ruin it, and those tablets had a pretty short shelf life. But, you know, it was a small miracle in a tablet, a lifesaver packed into every soldier's kit. Today's iodine and chlorine tablets still owe their existence to that wartime innovation. Of course, when all else failed, there was one timeless method left: boiling. Fire was the great equalizer. No matter the terrain, no matter the conditions, if a soldier could find fuel in a flame, he could make water safe. Boiling killed bacteria, protozoa, and most viruses. The method was ancient, but in the field it became an art form. Soldiers used everything: metal helmets, mess kits, gas stoves, or even shell casings, to bring water to a rolling boil. Field manuals taught them that 10 minutes of steady boiling could save their lives. It took patience, precious fuel, and discipline, but when the flames burned and the steam rose, they knew they were drinking safety. Even clear mountain water wasn't trusted unless it was boiled, because the enemy wasn't always visible. Yet sometimes, there was no time to boil, no tablets to drop, no fuel to burn. That's when simplicity saved lives. Soldiers learned that straining water through cloth, even a shirt or bandana, made a huge difference. The fabric removed mud, insects, algae, and sometimes even worm larvae. It wasn't sterile, but it was cleaner. When you were half-starved, half-dehydrated, and half a mile from enemy fire, a bandana could be the difference between marching and collapsing. Soldiers folded the cloth several times to trap finer particles. It was primitive filtration at its most desperate, survival stripped down to instinct and improvisation. And then there was sunlight, the quiet ally no one expected. Some soldiers noticed that water left in clear glass bottles under the sun for several hours seemed safer to drink. They couldn't explain it, but it worked often enough to become routine. What they were unknowingly using was the early principle of solar disinfection, or SODIS, a method now recognized by scientists and humanitarian agencies worldwide. Sunlight, particularly ultraviolet rays, damages the DNA of bacteria and viruses, rendering them harmless. Heat from the sun, when the water reached above 50 degrees Celsius, weakened remaining pathogens. For soldiers stranded without fuel or tablets, the sun itself became a silent purifier. It wasn't fast, and it wasn't perfect, but it offered hope. Each of these methods alone was clever. Combined, they became powerful. The soldiers who survived learned that no single trick was enough. The smart ones used layers, filter through cloth, strain through charcoal and sand, then boil or disinfect chemically. Each stage made the next more effective. It's the same principle that modern water plants still use today. Multiple barriers, multiple defenses. Without realizing it, soldiers on the front lines were pioneering survival science. These techniques weren't born from luxury or experimentation. They came from necessity, from the raw pressure of staying alive. Imagine being deep in the jungles of Burma or the deserts of North Africa, with your throat dry and your canteen filled with questionable water. You know it might make you sick, you know it might kill you, and yet, you drink, but not before filtering, boiling, or trusting the chemistry of a tiny white tablet. That's the kind of decision soldiers face daily. It was survival, reduced to its purest form. Knowledge, instinct, and courage. In the end, those who lived didn't just endure the war, they advanced the science of survival for generations to come. Every modern camper who filters a stream through charcoal, every prepper who drops a purification tablet into murky water, every disaster relief worker using solar disinfection owes a quiet debt to those wartime innovators. They didn't have the luxury of clean taps or bottled water. They had mud, fire, and willpower. World War II wasn't just a test of nations, it was a test of human adaptability. Soldiers turned chemistry into hope and turned the simplest tools into weapons against disease. Their discoveries transformed the way humanity thinks about survival. And in every drop of clean water we drink today, there's a trace of their struggle and their triumph.